so much. At the onset, I would like to thank Mr. Mehta and the whole team of Solvent Extractors Association. I'm coming back after a long time, and I think I've been a big proponent of RBO, and my job has been made very simple by Dr. Prakash and particularly Dr. Sashikaran. And we have a lot of overlap of slides, but his last slide did talk a little bit about blends. And I have some conflict of interest. I consult for a huge group of companies for support. So we all know that I'm an endocrinologist, metabolic physician, and we have a cardiologist following me, Dr. Choklingam, coming up. And as clinicians, you know, Asian Indians have the highest rate of heart disease in the world, diabetes in the world, and we are competing that, and mainly because we are very high, as Dr. Sashikaran said, fat triglycerides, low HDL. And we are particularly predisposed to metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, and whether you are from South of Asia or East of Asia, problems in Asia are very similar. And I was the first author on this study, which Dr. Mohan is a principal investigator, the ICMR INDIPE study, which we published for dyslipidemia. And we picked up 4 regions in the country, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Jharkhand, and Chandigarh. And this was published last year in PLOS ONE, where we looked at dyslipidemia in a cross-sectional 16,000 plus patients from these 4 places in India. And it was mainly rural, 11,495 rural and 511 and out of every 5th subject, we picked up lipid profile, and that's the data which we published, and look at what came out. Exactly what Dr. Sashikaran said. Probably this is the largest lipid study in India. Low HDL is seen in 72.3%. Whether it's lack of physical activity or whether it's something else happening there, we definitely have a very low HDL. And that's really our lipid abnormality, the first one. The second is, of course, high trigs or high triglycerides. 29.5% are high triglycerides, and cholesterol really is 13.9%. And only 20% of those patients, and this includes urban and rural India, predominantly rural India, okay, only 1/5 of them had no lipid abnormality. So that's something which is really starking, and only 7.7% of the adult population had all the triad, that is high triglyceride, high cholesterol, and low HDL. And if you look at Tamil Nadu, the prevalence of at least one lipid abnormality, it's around 35 million. If you look at Maharashtra, it's around 55 million. If you look at Jharkhand, it's around 14 million. If you look at Chandigarh, it's around 7.6 million. So it's a very, very large target. And edible oils are a part of our meal. We all know that. My previous 2 speakers have very clearly talked both the functional lipid energy source value of it, its structural biomembrane capability of glycolipids, phospholipids, fat-soluble vitamins, but also the sensorial value of it, the satiety, the preservation, the crispness, the fatness, the taste as a fat. And therefore, we all know that in vegetable oils, when we predominantly look at it, we have this big debate of sat fat and unsat and MUFA and PUFA, and I'm not going to really duplicate what has been already talked about. But we all know that rice bran clearly has a clear advantage, which has been alluded to by previous speakers, clearly giving an advantage that probably in this part of the world, particularly in Asia, we don't really need a Mediterranean oil like an olive oil or a Canadian oil like a canola oil. We really need to look at something like an extract of rice bran to really look at our biology. And we have very good fundamentals, that it is high on tocopherols, tocotrienol's, vitamin E, and of course the magic gamma-oryzanol. And we all know that it can be separated very well, and you know it has very good physicochemical properties. But when I came for one of the early meetings here a couple of years back in Raipur, I heard A.R. Sharma speaking on why we keep on doing physical refining of RBO. And I think the primary reason of physical refining is because it's far superior in its oryzanol, phytosterol, 4-methylsterol, tryptine, squalene, tocopherol, all of them need some source of antioxidants. Combining or blending is probably the way to go for better heart health. And obviously, I would not decry that we still, even though I talk about quality and blending and RBO in a big way, because I still feel it's the Indian olive oil. And I think we should be proud that we have our own oil in Asia, because we are an Asian meeting, that which can offer advantages, which might even be beneficial or more beneficial than maybe an oil like olive or canola. I think we should always say, as a clinician, I will always say, cook in less oil, less than ½ kilogram per person per month. I think you cannot decry quantity, though that might be my first bullet point. And we also need to know that independent of the oil which we use and the food which we consume, it's just one of those parts of lifestyle. We need never to forget physical activity. Because if we are not physically active, we all had food which was cooked in rice bran right now, and it's a postprandial time now. Our glucose is high, our brain uses a lot of glucose. Carbs we need to cut down, fats we need to modulate, but we still need to be physically active. Currently, unfortunately, in India, we are all wedded to physical activity, to our smartphones, through our fingers, or maybe our remote controls of our television, but we definitely need more physical activity. If you really need to move that HDL, you really don't need a super oil. You really need physical activity, and then maybe blend the right oil. Thank you for a patient hearing.